Hey, Dina Beard here, talking about structural cognitive modifiability. When we say structural cognitive modifiability, we're referring to a change in thinking or learning behavior that's a sharp departure of what we'd usually expect from experience alone or just the maturation process. When we talk about structural cognitive modifiability in the Feuerstein world, we're actually talking about using all of Feuerstein's systems: mediated learning experience, dynamic assessment, instrumental enrichment, all of the pages, and our knowledge of cognitive functions and dysfunctions to help change the thinking and learning of an individual. Structural cognitive modifiability. You'll hear that many times this week, and as you learn about it, it's never going to be in isolation. You'll also be learning about all the other systems that go with it concurrently. We won't stay on one topic in its entirety. Instead, we'll spend some time on structural cognitive modifiability, and then very quickly you'll be learning about mediated learning experience. Right next to that, you may start on the cognitive functions and dysfunctions. Working through the pages has to be a big part of every day so that you can accumulate all of those. And dynamic assessment. It all works together to achieve a change in thinking and learning. That's modifiability. I think Reuven Feuerstein was a genius in how he took the natural parts of thinking and learning and teaching and provided us a new framework to study each of those things. His theories are based on the best fundamental ideas of what we all do naturally. We all think and we all learn. His model for the phases of thinking, for instance, input, elaboration, and output, allow us to study thinking as a discipline and then to also take our own thinking and measure it against that good model. This week, your learning will not be linear. You won't just be learning A and adding that to B. Instead of fitting everything perfectly together the first time around, you're going to learn a little bit and then go on to the next page or theory or action. It really can be a fun process. It's very, very interesting. You learn a little bit about one system, maybe the cognitive functions, and as you learn about that, it will move along and help you forward your understanding about strategies and how they relate to structural cognitive modifiability, how mediated learning comes in and strengthens modifiability. I think of this whole process of learning this way as a spiral or even a circle. The more you learn about one of these parts, the greater your understanding of other parts and of the whole. As you do that, as you begin to keep understanding more and more of each part, you really increase your understanding of structural cognitive modifiability. I kind of think of it as tightening up in ever smaller circles all of these definitions. You think more and more about each part, you revisit it, you talk about mediation, you try it, you talk about structural cognitive modifiability, and as you do that, you tighten up your definition of each of those things. You tighten up your idea of what structural cognitive modifiability is until you have the very nugget, the very idea of what it is and how you can use the idea and mediate with someone. In a minute, I'm going to show you another part which will be a visual of what I've just described. But before that, I just want to say a couple more things. Remember to keep asking yourself how it all fits together. We want to make ourselves be more modifiable and by that be more metacognitive about how we learn about Feuerstein's instrumental enrichment and especially about structural cognitive modifiability. Be patient with yourself, but also be pretty demanding of your learning systems. Be willing to adapt those learning systems. Finally, I think it's very important for all of us to consider and remember the children that we've worked with before, the ones that we felt like We couldn't figure out what to do with them. The ones that seemed impossible to reach. The kids that were very inconsistent from one day to the next, or sometimes even 1 hour to the next. The ones that sometimes reading was a breeze for them, but when it came to math, it was just totally undoable. Let those students stream across your memory. Try to fit what you knew about them into the framework you're learning now. And as soon as you learn something, one way to be metacognitive is to go back and think about what could you have done different about your processes of engaging students then with now. Compare them. See what you could do differently today. So all the elements are in place. The theories are very sound. Your style of mediation will develop as you talk to others and practice this week and throughout this coming year. As soon as you can, try to mediate a page with clients or students or family and see how it really works in person. Again, you're learning about the whole idea of structural cognitive modifiability from each elemental perspective. Each system affects the whole. This is a very simple visual representation of structural cognitive modifiability. Equilateral triangle with points of task, learner, and mediator. At the center is structural cognitive modifiability. It's the goal of everything we do. Every interaction between the mediator, the learner, and the task is pointed towards structural cognitive modifiability. Each point of this equilateral triangle is vital. In real life, you are the mediator, your student is the learner, and the task comes from a page of maybe organization of dots, page 5. The second equilateral triangle has different points. Feuerstein's instrumental enrichment, mediated learning experience, and the cognitive functions and dysfunctions. The goal is still structural cognitive modifiability. It's still at the center of everything we do. The ideas are a bit bigger on this slide because we're including whole systems. Of course, more of Feuerstein's systems could be used. They could be added, changed around, but the configuration would work on any of them. The third slide is a star with the first triangle superimposed on the second one. The goal of every point, either alone or in concert, is still structural cognitive modifiability. A star with 6 important points of learning. As each point is sharpened, defined, and analyzed, and becomes more meaningful for you, your understanding of structural cognitive modifiability will increase. Point by point, piece by piece, you will intentionally develop a stronger, more cohesive understanding of structural cognitive modifiability. Thanks for listening.